right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of SaberSim's DFS office hours. Today is Thursday, February 13th of 2025, and looking ahead here, we have a 5-game NBA main slate. Is the last day of the first half of the NBA season. Starting tomorrow, we will be going into the All-Star break. So for those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Andrew, one of the coaches over here at SaberSim. This is a show where we go over how to use the SaberSim app, answer any and all DFS-related questions. Get your questions in one of three ways here. First off, send us an email, support@sabersim.com. Second, post it live in the YouTube chat. Third way, post it in the office hours channel in our Discord server. If you're not in our Discord and want to get access to that channel, there's a link in the description of this video. You also get access to our similar channels, individual sport channels, and you get access to the rest of the SaberSim team. Just can't say enough good things about the Discord. But with that said, we do this show Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, and then we do the show on Saturdays at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. So tune in any one of those days, get your questions answered. Almost forgot, golf teed off earlier this morning. Good luck to all of you in your, full tournament golf sweats and some golf showdowns if you're playing those over the weekend here, which I think more people might be with no other sports rocking and rolling. But let's get SaberSim up. Why don't we kick off a build here while we read off our first question? And we're just going to work our way top down here in the chat. So first question from J. Sams Jr. How can we sort our lineups pre-build for fantasy points per minute? So it's actually a new column. If you guys are on the Ultimate or Pro subscriptions, this FPPM stands for fantasy points per minute. We didn't previously have this, but we do now. So it's considered like a detailed statistic since like it goes along with minutes. And let's see if we can find that. Where did I put that? Okay, right here. If I want to bring this over. So if I come in, I could sort by this. I could see, who are the highest fantasy point per minute players, right? And looks like it's like Shai, James Harden, Sabonis. So new column, highly requested. If you're on Ultimate or have access to detailed stats from one of our other subscription that are a little bit older, you should be able to see this. All right, next question. Hello, Andrew. I hope you're well. I apologize for the seemingly trivial question, but I wanted to check if there have been any updates to the app that I may have missed. When I run a contest sim, I no longer see the 3 ROI percentages at the top of the build. I've double checked and don't believe any filters are applied. If you have any insight, I would greatly appreciate your guidance. Thank you. Okay, I did see a response to this, and I want to check it out. I think somebody jumped in here, but let's see. I think there was a screenshot attached with this question as well. So why don't we just go check that out real quick? Okay. GM said if you are in autofill, you would need to save to contest before you see the metrics displayed after you have run the sims. Also, do you see the labels and just not the metric, or is the whole area blank? Okay. Good point here. So a couple different things going on that are important to be aware of. Okay. So first one is, right now, for instance, I don't have an entry file uploaded, right? And let's just say like I do have one, right? I'm going to go get one real quick so we can do a quick demo. So let's say I go into the lobby real quick for today. And, let's just say I go and enter like a dime time, right? All right. So I come to the contest tab. Actually, let's do this opposite. We're going to do it with no entry file first. Okay. So I'm in this build, right? I've already run my lineups. I'm going to go set up my metrics. And let's just say I don't want to use average projection. I'm going to use max. Oh no, I do got to run a sim first. Okay, so let's say I'm using manual contest sims, right? I come in here and I just right click on a couple to create some sims, right? This would be no entry file. Say I'm playing these contests, but I just haven't entered them yet, right? But I can still sim for them. All right, so I go and do the manual contest sims. I set those up. I go back to my build where I already have lineups. And then my run contest sim button turns green. And I kick this off, right? So we got to wait for the sim to run in order to create the metrics, these aggregate metrics with the contest sim stuff. So let's just run the contest sim first. And we're just waiting for this. Okay, done now, right? So then I go to my aggregate metrics. And then I'm going to create 1, 2, 3, right? These are like the defaults: max, median, min. And then it defaults to target ROI. Okay. So notice I've run a sim, right? I have contest sims created, but the target ROIs are all blank. The reason for that is because target ROI specifically goes off of you uploading an entry file. So if you're using custom contest sims, target ROI will not auto-populate metrics, right? It'll have these blanks. So what you would have to do I'm just switching all these to mega 8s, and then I click save. Now there's data for all of these. Okay, so this is one way to do it. So if you're using custom, be aware of that. The other way, right, now I'm going to go upload a file. Okay, I'm going to download my file. I'm going to drag it over, right? I just put one entry in a dime time, right? This one, you notice it has like the star. It's because it's in your entry file. This one is a target contest, okay? So now I go back to my build. I click run contest sim again. And we're going to let this run. Okay, so now that I have an entries file, right, I could see it when I click the drop down for the save, right? There's a contest here. Now if I use target, right, max, median, min, target, now I have data, right? So the target works off of the one contest sim that got uploaded, okay? Other important thing to note, right, is if I go over to autofill, right, notice when I'm in direct here, I have percentages because I get to see the lineup first. This is what GM was talking about. So because I'm seeing the lineup, it's right here and I have my metrics. When I go to autofill, the lineup isn't in the contest until I click save. So automatically your ROIs, even if they're target, are going to be blank. It isn't until I click save that the lineup gets put into the contest and then the metrics populate the same way that the exposures populate after clicking save. So I hope that makes sense. The issue should be somewhere, you know, in the answer there, and whether it's changing aggregates, whether it's uploading a file, whether it's doing something that should help you to figure out what is going wrong. If you're still having trouble, don't worry about it. All you need to do is come up to the top right, use report a problem, let our team know what's going on, and then that will give us a little bit better ability to help you and get everybody back on the same page. All right, good stuff there. Next question. If I use the optimizer instead of the sim to build lineups, am I telling it to not consider game theory and whatnot, or does it still do so once it clicks run sim? Second question. Okay, so two questions here. Let's go one at a time. So if I use the optimizer instead of the sim to build lineups, am I telling it to not consider game theory and whatnot, or does it still do so once I click run sim? Okay, so interesting question, right? So there is a two-step process here, okay? We got to understand our two steps here. So step one is building lineups, and then step two is simulating the lineups in the contest you're playing, okay? So those are the two steps here. Number one is, the first part of the question is like, hey, I want to use optimizer mode instead of sim mode to build my lineups. So what you're doing there, right, is you're building lineups. You're building the highest projected lineups possible, right? You're building a pool of the highest projected lineups. When you're building with sim mode, right? So that was optimizer mode. When you're building with sim mode, we are randomly sampling the sim database. Your lineups will typically have more upside if you're building with sim mode as opposed to optimizer mode. Okay. So that's the trade-off there. Like like average projection versus upside. So average projection is better for optimizer. Upside is better for sim mode. Okay. So that's number one here. Second part is talking about like game theory and like the running of the sims, right? So the sim versus optimizer decision gets you your pool of lineups. Okay. The contest sim is where like the game theory and the ownership come into play, right? Because we're not taking into account ownership in the lineup building process at any point here, right? We're not taking it into account. It gets taken into account after the lineups are built. That's true for SaberScore. That's true for contest sims, right? SaberScore has an ownership variable, and then contest sims are using, the ownership projections to figure out how often the lineups are played and then simulating it out. And then that affects payout structures, ROI, all those type of things, right? So I would argue no, that if you choose to build your lineups with optimizer mode, you are not disregarding game theory, because we're using like game theory and ownership like interchangeably here, but the contest sim takes into account ownership and range of outcomes and all those things with the players, since it's simulating the slate over and over again. So I think a better too long didn't read answer of this is, it is okay to build your lineups in optimizer mode and then run them through the contest sim, because the contest sim is going to tell you which of your lineups that you built are the best to play in the contest that you're optimizing for, right? So all it is getting to your pool a different way. Some things to be aware of, right, is that, news does break late in a sport like NBA, especially a slate like yesterday, and it can take longer to build a pool of lineups in optimizer mode, which can make it harder to account for late breaking news, right? So that's like the biggest thing to be aware of. But if you're doing something like, golf or MMA or NFL, and you want to do that is totally okay. All right, there was a second question here. Second question is, when I look back on slates, the optimizer consistently generates a higher actual. Any insight on why that would be? I do typically edit most projections. Okay, so it sounds like you're back testing some slates, right? And it sounds like you're using the contest sims to do so. So really important here is when you go back to like an old slate, right? Say I want to go back to yesterday. Say I want to do some back testing, right? I want to run some builds with some different parameters, things like that. Well, and you're going to use the contest sims, right, in your post build. It is really, really important to go into the contest tab, go to field lineups, click the gear icon, and turn these toggles off. Okay. Use live fields, use live sims. What this is going to do is like effectively use the actual scores that the player scored and build give you like the best lineups at the top of your contest, right? So to get a better sense of like actual back testing with like pre-slate projections and all that kind of stuff, turn these toggles off, okay? Because it will run the sim as if the slate is over if they are on, but if they are off, it will run the sim as if the slate has not played out yet. So that's probably what you're running into here. All right. Taking a peek in Discord here. Nice message from Brown Casino. Appreciate you. And no more questions at the moment. So why don't we go ahead and do a slate demo here? So we got February 13th, 5-game NBA main slate tonight. Let's just start fresh, right? So if I were building lineups for tonight, first thing I would do is open my build, right? I'm going to only build 500 lineups, but I would recommend building as however many your plan allows. making my 2 adjustments, 2 projections here, and then clicking off build. Good opportunity when this is running to go over the contest tab, upload your entry file. I've seen this question come up like a couple times the past day, so good opportunity to mention it. If you've uploaded a file and you need to re-upload a file, maybe you added contests, maybe you're doing a late swap and your lineups are out of sync, right? On this page, just go to this up arrow on the contest page specifically, go to the up arrow next to download entries. This will allow you to re-upload a file, right? So if I need to add entries, if I've taken entries away, if I want to get SaberSim and DraftKings back on the same page, I just re-upload a file, use the hyperlink, drag and drop here, and then it will do that for you. So that's how you re-upload a file. All right, going back to build 2. And our sim has run, or our lineups have run. I'm going to run the contest sim. And I'm going to move some columns around while we wait here. Okay, exposure. I don't really want this one. All right, so Sam, I'm building this one lineup, right? I don't really care about position. Shrink this a little bit. Cool. So contest sim is run. I can see my target ROI metrics here. I can do a couple things, right? 1, I could use autofill. 2, I could use direct fill, right? Let's talk a little bit about autofill. So notice here, right? I'm in direct. I could see my one lineup. And then when I switch to auto, the exposures go blank. That's because the lineup is not in the contest yet. Okay, so direct, you see your lineups before saving. Autofill, you see your lineups after saving, right? So I typically close this section. And then now I can see my autofill, right? Another common question I've been seeing, right, is the difference between changing the sorting up here on the top and then changing it in the columns. So basically the sort up here, I call it the master sort. I don't know what we technically officially call it. But this allows you to change all of your contests at once. Okay, this is effectively your default sorting. All right. So my default here is ROI. Well, let's say that, I'm playing 5 contests and for one of them, I don't want to use ROI. I want to use projection, right? So then I would come into the rank by, I would change that one to projection. This cell in the rank by overrides the master. Okay. And then at any point, if you want to turn this off, you can either change it manually back, or you can click the reset icon that appears in the rank by column header, right? And that will set it back to what it is originally, which matches the master sort, right? So this gives you the ability to make contest specific changes. And then you could also change uniques by contest one at a time, or you can use the gear icon to change them all at once, right? Maybe you want a default of 3 and then all of them are 3. And then, well, maybe one contest I want 4, right? Well, the gear icon is your default. And then when you change one manually in the cells, then the reset icon appears. And then it will go back to whatever the gear icon is set to. Okay. So the 3 is like the default, right? If you want to change it back to 1, you got to change it via the gear icon. Okay. And then we have these other 2 sections: ignore min exposure, ignore max exposure. This is like for somebody, maybe somebody's playing a 20 max and maybe they don't want 100% of a player, right? So they set them to like 80%. Well, it will mess up your single entries, because in single entry, you either have 0% exposure or 100% exposure. And it will basically make you not play that player in any single entries, which most people, that's not what they were trying to do, right? That wasn't their goal. So these min and max exposures checkboxes are on by default for any contest where you have 1 entry, right? So even though this is a 20 max, I have 1 entry, so it gets put on automatically. But anyways, getting back to our demo. So, I'm in autofill. I have my metrics set up. I click save. Lineups go into the contest, right? I get the metrics. Now I can go back. I could review my exposures. I could review, the lineups I'm getting. If I want to see the lineups also, right, I click this drop down and then I get to see the lineup in like this row format here. Now let's say maybe I don't like this one, right? I don't like this lineup. Okay, I trash it. I click save again, and then I get a new lineup, right? We can see it's a new lineup because the aggregate metrics changed, right? So it's trash resave, verify, check exposures, trash, resave, verify, right? So it's always important to know that you should save and autofill and then analyze, right? It's the opposite of direct. Direct is like analyze and then save, right? So a little different between those two. Both have their pros and cons. So that is what you should be aware of when using direct versus auto. All right. Jerry said, when doing late swap in NBAs, max ROI typically a good indicator whether or not you have a chance to bink. During the last swap the other night, I had a max of 40K, but still lost money. Okay, good question. So max is describing the highest achievable ROI of any single lineup across all of your contests. So it's not a great indicator, in my opinion, of if you're going to win for that night. And the reason for that, right, is because let's say like you have a chance of binking in one contest, right? Well, maybe it's like, unfortunately, one of your lower entry contests, and you could still win, right? Like if I take a 10-cent contest and it pays, $100 to first, well, I've just like 100x, right? So if I have a lineup that's doing really good in like a dime time, my ROI in that contest could be, 10,000% or higher, whatever it ends up being, right? It doesn't exactly mean that lineup is going to pay for all of my other entry fees, right? So a better indicator of that is when all the games have locked, okay, you have this, so this is the games panel, right? I can like open it, close it. You get this little it'll give you a couple different options here, and one of them will say entry fees, and then one of them will say portfolio EV. So this is like telling you, hey, all the games have locked. We can see all of the actual lineups. We're able to give you more information about how we think you're going to do. So your portfolio EV will tell you like, hey, we think that, you're going to win this much. We think you're going to lose this much, right? There's also another section that appears on the contest tab, and it comes up next to sim settings on the right. It says sim results. And then we'll even tell you how we think you're going to do on a contest by contest level. So after all the slates have locked, if you're playing tonight, check it out. Come in here. This is 6 p.m. Pacific time. So come in here, check that portfolio EV out, check those sim results out. This will give you a better sense of whether or not we think you're going to win or lose money on a night. And then it is constantly updating as well as the rest of the games play out. So pretty neat feature. Doesn't work great on mobile. In case you guys are checking on mobile, better to check it on a desktop. Something we definitely want to improve, just like mobile capability. But some of that is like also related to how much like computation power there is like in a cell phone too. So pretty tricky thing, but definitely something we want to optimize in the future. And that we're excited about. All right, next question. I'm late. Do you prefer to use average score projection or SaberSim default scoring? I have the pro subscription. Thanks. If we are referring to sorting metrics, I recommend using SaberScore over projected score. And the reason for that is because the whole reason we created SaberScore was because we didn't think average projection was a good way to rank your lineups in a, fantasy sport format that pays so much to first place, right? Like you go and you look at the payout structures of these contests, and it is, 33% to first, 33% to first, 25%, 16, 10, 5, right? Those are a little bit lower, but typically a lot of the money is going to first place, and like, even more is going to the top 10, right? And these contests are like rather large, right? So grading lineups based on the average didn't feel like it was doing it for us. So what we did is we went and created these different Saber scores, and it's important that, to say that, we do understand average projection matters, right? That is why it is one of the 3 variables in this formula, but we're also taking into account lineup upside, right? 99th percentile of a lineup is the highest score the lineup achieves in 1% of our sims, right? So, we have like a player right? And we can go, we can click on them. We can see how they do, right? Across all our sims. Well, what we do here is like once all the players are in the lineup, we go back into the sims. We say, hey, how did this group of players do as a whole? And then we get a similar graph for the lineup. And then we're saying, okay, in 1% of the sims, this lineup scored 387 points or something like that, right? I'm just making up a number. We're taking that into account in this formula. So we're taking into account upside, average projection, and ownership, right? There is this negative weight on this ownership variable here. And so we think that this is superior, right? It has the average projection, but it has, those top high ceiling outcomes. And then we're taking into account, well, how high owned are these players in your contest, right? So this is what we recommend using. And this is why we think it is better than just projected score alone. All right. We are all caught up here with questions in the Office Hours channel, Discord, YouTube chat, and we knocked out a slate demo. So appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow for Office Hours and our build review show. And until then, everybody, take care. Good luck. Thanks. Bye.